Quiet, please. Quiet, please.
The American Broadcasting Company presents Quiet, Please, which is written and directed by Willis Cooper, and which features Ernest Chappell. Quiet, Please, for today is called Northern Lights.
This is a story about the temporal displacement of mass. It is also a story about teleportation. Do you know what those terms mean? No, I didn't think you did, but you stay right where you are, my charming friend, and you're quite likely to find out. You just stay right there and listen, and I'll tell you everything you want to know. And maybe a couple of things you're not terribly anxious to know. Ever see the Northern Lights? Aurora Borealis is their right name. You don't see them very often below the 50th parallel of latitude in this country, but up in northern Minnesota and Canada, upper New York, places like that, they're quite common of a winter night. If you've seen them, you'll know what they look like. If you haven't, there's no use my trying to describe them. Sometimes they fill the whole northern sky with waves of color, like a fire burning way beyond the horizon. Sometimes they're just long streamers of fire filling up the whole sky. And another time they look like gigantic, fringed curtains of pure light, swaying as if some cold cosmic breeze plucked at them, way far off there to the north. And you can hear them, too, sometimes. Well, maybe not exactly hear them, but there's a sound, a humming, a crackling somewhere inside your head. And there are times when you'd swear it's a voice talking to you, talking in some kind of strange language you can almost understand, filling your whole being with a kind of desperate, inescapable terror. You know what I mean? At night, in the cold night, voices talking and saying things to you that you can almost understand, filling the night sky with signs and portents of inescapable terror. And nobody in the whole world knows what they are, nobody in this world at least, except me. And after I get done talking to you, you'll know too. And you won't be happy. Let me show you something now. This is from a recording I made on, December 13th, 1948, a little more than a month and a half ago. I started the recorder while Norman and I were just about finished with our work that afternoon here in the laboratory. I just set the microphone on top of the file cabinet there and turned on the machine. Listen, I'm going to play it back for you. The quality isn't so very good, but you can recognize my voice and Norman's, I think. Here.
I got the coral rewound now, I guess.
Did you test it?
How can I test it when I said I just got it rewound?
Well, hurry up. It's almost 6 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, it's dark and I didn't realize the time.
Hurry up.
I'm hurrying. Be a display tonight, you suppose?
How do I know? Been a display the last 3 nights.
Well, that was a dinger last night, wasn't it?
Yeah, the machine wasn't ready.
Hey, listen, now, do you think you can do better than I can? Ouch!
What's the matter?
Oh, I stuck my finger.
Where'd you put the copper sulfate?
Up above the sink.
Huh? I got it. What are you doing?
Testing the coil.
How's it?
Oh, it looks okay. Hey, wait a minute. Yeah, it's okay.
I'll be right with you. Hook it up.
What are you going to send?
You try my cigarette lighter. That won't work anyway. I won't miss it if we don't get it back.
I don't know how the thing will work when the northern lights aren't shining.
Maybe they are shining. Turn off the room light. Let's see.
All right.
Pretty early,
What's the matter?
Hey, look.
Ooh, out early tonight. Oh, boy, that's fine. The whole sky. Look, blue and yellow. I never saw those long fringes.
Never the same.
I'll say, did you turn on the recorder?
Yep.
Yeah, it's turning over. Let's see. Now is the time for all good men to come to the aid of their party.
Now, leave it alone. You about ready now?
What's funny about the Aurora?
Northern Lights? Listen to this
What's
part
funny?
closely, friend.
Oh, I don't know.
Remember what I told you.
You can almost hear the darn things. Not hear them, I mean, but it's kind of like somebody talking to you in a language you can almost understand. I don't know. I mean, you ever notice it?
Sure. High frequencies, I guess. Something.
Awful lot we don't understand.
Look, you go over there at the recorder and talk into the mic.
Talk what?
Well, just describe what happens for the record.
I'm no announcer.
I know you're not, but just say what you see so we'll have an accurate record.
Okay. Now?
Go ahead.
This is an experiment in the temporal displacement of a solid object. In other words, the first actual demonstration of a time machine, if it works.
It'll work all right. Go on.
Paul is now placing his old beat-up cigarette lighter on the stage of the hypercucambulator, and he is now setting the microchronometer to determine how far into the future he's going to send the lighter. Well, how far, Paul?
10 seconds.
10 seconds. Now, at the end of that time, if our calculations are correct, and we hope they are, the cigarette lighter will reappear. In that period of time, it will have been into the future. We could send it farther into the future if we wanted to, I guess, but we'd just have to wait that much longer for time to catch up with it and make it reappear. But 10 seconds, well, we can prove our point by sending it 10 seconds into the future just as well as 10 years ahead, and this way we don't have to wait so long. Hey, how am I doing, Paul?
Now, go into your commercial.
When Paul presses the little button, the cigarette lighter will turn to nothing.
That's not right. It'll be here, but it'll be 10
Now,
seconds
listen
away.
closely, please.
Yeah. Well, now,
What's going to happen?
Mr. Paul McGillicuddy, a famous mad scientist, is about to press the big old button and send his lighter into the future. You ready, Paul?
Here we go. Stand by. Look, Norm!
By golly, it is gone. It just disappeared. Bang, like that.
Told you what, so close to the mic, Paul, so to record.
Yeah. There isn't sign of the lighter. The little stage on which Paul placed it is empty, and it should appear again in just a second if it really did work. 3, 2, 1.
It's back! Hey, it's back, Norm!
It worked. We made it. Oh, man, let's see if it's all right. Oh, oh.
Now what?
Oh, the lighter. Oh, it's cold, Paul. Ooh, here. Take it, Paul. Take it. Oh, it's freezing cold.
What do you know? The darn thing's like a piece of ice.
Now, where the dickens do you suppose it's been in that 10 seconds?
No, wait, friend. That's not the
right.
payoff
You
yet.
said only in the future.
Listen.
And time's caught up with it. It's back, but...
Hey, Paul, look. Where did that come from?
What?
There on the stage where the lighter was. Where'd that come from? In the middle of winter.
What is it?
It's a caterpillar, Paul. A brown and black caterpillar.
Well, where do you suppose it came from? Well, it wasn't there.
I'll tell you where it came from, Paul.
What?
It came from the same place where the cigarette lighter went.
What? What are you talking about?
Well, feel it, Paul. Feel its fur. See? It's as cold as ice, too.
A caterpillar. A little brown and black caterpillar, the kind they call woolly bears. You know, larva of the tiger moth, the Icea Isabella. In the dead of winter and as cold as ice. Where did it come from? Huh? You want to know. Incidentally, you know, the old-timers say that the woolly bear caterpillar is a weather prophet. If the brown bands on his fur are narrow, there's a severe winter ahead. If they're wide, it's going to be a mild winter. Maybe. This one, you could hardly see the brown bands. Tough weather ahead, that's what the old-timers would say. But where'd she come from? She wasn't there when we put the cigarette lighter on the stage. When time caught up again, there she was. She? Sure, Isabella. I see her, Isabella. I told you, remember? Well, she was wiggling happily when she arrived from
somewhere in the future. But as she warmed up, she seemed to go into a trance, almost a death-like trance. So Norman said, put her in the deep freeze. Maybe she'll come to again in the cold. So we put her in the deep freeze. And in half an hour, when we looked in at her, she was wiggling happily. At 10 degrees below zero, friend. Now, can you tie that? My goodness, she should have been frozen solid. Well, nothing special happened for a couple of days. That, you remember, was a month and a half ago, December 13th, 1948. Where were you on the night of December 18th? Saturday night, a week before Christmas. I'd been Christmas shopping in the afternoon, I remember. I came back to the laboratory to check up on some stuff, and Norman was there, fiddling with things. Hi, Norm, I said. How's Isabella?
You know something funny, Paul?
What's the matter with you?
Who, me?
You look so pale. You sick? Eat something disagreed with you?
Paul, Isabella's singing.
Singing what? Isabella's singing. You're dotty.
She's singing. The caterpillar's singing.
Not tap dancing, I hope.
I'm not kidding you.
Oh, cut it out.
Open the deep freeze and listen.
You've been at the C2H50H?
I haven't had a drink since Thursday night.
Well, now, what?
Open the deep freeze and listen.
No kidding?
No kidding.
Well, we don't know where she came from. I won't be surprised at anything. Hello, Isabella.
Hey, don't do that.
What's the matter? Afraid she'll answer me back?
Well, I don't know what.
Hello, Isabella. I hear you singing.
I told you, Paul.
I don't hear anything.
Now, listen, Paul. I haven't lost my buttons. I've been hearing it all afternoon. I couldn't figure out what was doing it, and then I noticed it was louder alongside the deep freeze here. So I opened it up and stuck my head inside, and it was coming from her.
Oh. What does it sound like, Norm?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like A-E-I.
A-E-I? Didn't she say A-E-I-O-U and sometimes W and Y?
Now, don't rib me. I tell you, I heard it.
I think you better take a Christmas vacation, Norm.
I'm not
I
nuts.
know, kid, I know, but listen, we've been playing around with some pretty deep cosmic secrets, you and me. We've managed temporal displacement, which nobody in the world has ever done, see? Maybe we both need a rest.
You know what I think, Paul?
What?
I think we've managed teleportation, too. And we don't know it.
Teleportation? You mean like Charles Ford talks about?
I mean transporting tangible objects from one place to another without any mechanical means.
Electronically.
I don't know, Paul. All I know is that cigarette lighter was someplace where it was awful cold. And it wasn't cold here in this room.
Well,
And where did that caterpillar come from?
I don't know.
It came from wherever that cigarette lighter went, Paul.
But where?
I don't know, somewhere. And you know what? I'm going to find out where it came from.
You are. And how, may I ask you?
I'm going to modify this gadget of ours, this hypercucambulator, so it'll carry a man. And then, my dear boss, I'm going to sit down in it and have you send me out there somewhere in time and space and come back and tell you all about it.
That's all for tonight, Bud.
What?
Come on, I'll take you out and buy you a drink.
I'm not fooling, Paul.
Okay, you're not fooling, Norm. Get your hat and coat and come on. I prescribe hot buttered rum.
Well,
Turn off the lights.
will you listen to me for a
Turn
minute?
off the lights. I want hot buttered rum.
Okay.
Gosh, look out of that window.
The northern lights. Oh, they're really bright tonight.
Sure are.
Look how they pulse. Up, down. Up, down.
Norm,
Up. What?
look at the deep freeze there in the dark.
What about?
You see it?
Light, Paul. Light. It's
I see it, Norm. It's right in step with the northern lights.
and the same colors. Red, red. Blue, blue. Up, down. Up,
Coming from the deep freeze where our little friend
down.
Isabella was singing to you. Now, what do
Hey,
you...
Paul, listen.
I don't...
Listen.
We never did get that hot-blooded rum. We stayed there in the laboratory for a long time, listening to the voice of the thing in the box, endlessly repeating A-E-I-O-U, the vowel sounds of our speech, and watching the light that pulsed up from the deep freeze in perfect rhythm with the flickering of the northern lights we watched through the window. And we thought long, long thoughts that I don't remember any too clearly now. I do know we both of us thought of ways to perfect our little mechanism, our time machine. Our machine that brought back a little cold brown and black caterpillar from somewhere. And when it was morning, and the lights had faded from the northern skies, we found that our machine was very different. The stage where we found the caterpillar was larger now. I had only a vague recollection of what had happened in the night. I said to Norman, I said, what did we do last night?
I don't know for sure, Paul.
Did we rebuild that thing? Make it larger?
I don't know. I think I dreamed I was working on it. I think I hit my finger with a hammer.
I see. Thumb's all bruised. Certainly looks it.
Well, nobody could have gotten in here. The door's locked.
The machine's certainly different.
This coil I fixed, look, it's rewound it. Did I do that?
My head hurts.
Mine, too.
Oh, I don't get it.
I don't either. I wish I could.
Listen, Norm.
What?
Maybe we did change it.
Well, how could we have done all that by ourselves?
I got an idea.
What?
Why, maybe Isabella helped us.
The caterpillar? Oh,
let's see, shall we?
Open the deep freeze.
Well, I opened it. It was empty. There wasn't any brown and black caterpillar in the deep freeze. We took a flashlight and looked over every inch of it. We stood there and looked at each other for a whole minute. Norman said, well. I just shook my head. We went over and sat down. All of a sudden I said, I found her, Norman. And there she was. There was little Isabella, the caterpillar, crumpled up, stone dead on the floor of the laboratory. And you know, caterpillars have little tiny paws. And one of Isabella's paws was the end of a long piece of wire that ran up to the generator coil.
Well, how did she get out?
And I said the thing couldn't be opened from the inside. I said it was fastened down tight when I took the lid off just now.
But she did get out.
Maybe she did help us, Norm, I said. And he just sat there and stared at me. And I got up and put on my overcoat.
Where are you going? Where are you going, Paul?
I said, I'm going to find out something, Norman. Where I'm going, it's cold, I said. I know that, and I'm going to find out what's been going on and where that caterpillar came from. Norm goggled at me. I stepped on the stage of the machine that was to take me away somewhere in time, space. I said, Norm, turn it on. Finally, he reached over and touched the switch. He didn't say a word. And I braced myself. I nodded at him. Go ahead, I said. And he pressed the switch. And nothing happened at all. Nothing. Why?
I know, Paul, I know. It's daylight, and there aren't any northern lights.
Well, it was just as well. I had a chance to think about it a little, and I realized that just an overcoat wouldn't do me any good where I might be going. And so when it was dark night again and the northern lights were flickering and dancing in the sky, I put on a high-altitude aviator suit that had its own source of heat supply. Norman shook his head as I got back on the stage, nodded for him to press the switch. Cold. You've never been cold, friend. Dark. You wouldn't know how dark it can get. And I was standing on an immense plain that stretched so far into the distance, a plain of snow and eternal ice. A dead, cold, white world with the blackest sky above me. And the northern lights reached from horizon to horizon. Even through the high-altitude suit, I could feel a biting cold. And I was afraid, shivering, abjectly afraid. The streamers of the northern lights reached down toward me and wrapped about me. I heard the sound of voices screaming into my mind. I could understand them. I wished heartily I'd never played around with cosmic forces. I yelled inside the heavy helmet. I yelled, Norman! Norman, bring me back! And there was nobody to hear me. No, I don't know what I was. Another planet. Maybe the North Pole. Maybe the lights were all around me. Maybe that's where it was. But it was the most terrible, awful, cold, lonely place you could imagine in 100 years. The lights, the flickering, living lights crawled over me and beat at me. I could almost understand what they were saying. And then, the crash. The sudden blackness. I was standing again in the laboratory I'd left only a few short seconds ago, and Norman was tearing at the fastenings of my suit and beating at me with both hands. I wondered what in the world he was doing until I got the helmet off. He was rushing caterpillars off me. Thousands of cold, freezing cold, brown and black Isabella caterpillars. I was in bed for a week or more. I don't know how long. Wherever it was I'd been, I'd nearly frozen to death in those short seconds. And at last, I was able to come back to the laboratory. I sat there that night with Norman. And outside the windows, the northern lights were brighter than they'd ever been before. Purple, green, yellow, black lights even. And there was a new rhythm tonight. A kind of code, almost words, thoughts, not quite formed and yet curiously disturbing. Norman, though, didn't seem to be as disturbed as I was. He just sat quietly and looked at me.
Where did those caterpillars come from, Paul?
I don't know. Where I was, that's all I know.
Did they attack you, or?
I don't know. They came from the lights.
The lights?
The northern lights. Where are they, Norman?
The caterpillars?
Yes. Where are they?
In the deep freeze, where Isabella was.
Poor Isabella.
What's the matter with you, Paul?
I'm listening.
Listening to what?
Don't you hear them?
I don't hear anything.
Don't you?
I don't hear anything.
Well, listen. Listen.
I don't hear anything.
Turn on the recording machine. I want to see if we could pick up their voices.
There isn't anything,
Turn it
Paul.
on. Turn it on. I want a recording. Quick. Quick, Norman. They're talking to us. Listen, friend. I want to play you another recording. This is what came out of our tape recorder that night when I was listening to the voices. And Norman couldn't hear anything. Just listen.
I still don't hear anything, Paul.
Be still. Listen.
I tell you,
Listen.
What's that?
Look at the deep freeze.
The top's coming open. Look at the light around it, Paul.
Be quiet. Watch.
How did they... Good Lord, look. The caterpillars are coming out, Paul. Look at them. There's millions of them.
Be still, Norman.
But Paul, your voice.
Be still, I said.
What's the matter with your voice?
We want to talk to you.
You what? You said we.
Why, of course, Norman. We.
Who for the...
It is Paul's voice, Norman. Paul's voice. Voice. But it is not Paul speaking. Listen. We speak to you.
Paul.
Not Paul. We, the people of the lights. We from the cold. We are speaking to you with Paul's voice.
I tell you that...
Paul's voice will tell you what to do when the time comes, Norman. We go to the machine now. Paul's mind is ours for a little time now. We go to the machine that brought us to your world from the world of the lights.
Who are you?
The people of the lights, to take over this world of yours. Only this world of yours is so hot. We must have the cold world, and we know how to make it cold.
What's the matter, Paul? Paul!
So hot.
No.
Quick, Norman, turn on the machine. Send us to places in your world. No, our world. Hurry. So hot. Hurry, so hot.
Paul!
Hurry. Turn on the machine. That's the end of the recording. No, I don't know. I don't have any recollection of it at all. But the recording's there, isn't it? That must be what happened. Anyway, when I woke up, Norman was gone, and there were no caterpillars in the place here. And our machine that took people and things away into time and space, was wrecked. I don't know what became of it. You heard what they said about my voice. They're going to take over this world and make it a cold world, like the one they came from. Whatever that is, and wherever they went. No, I don't know where they went, where the machine sent them. I do have ideas. Yes. Are you cold? It's freezing in here. And just for example, you read the papers? Look at the newsreels. Did you see the pictures of the snow in Los Angeles? In subtropical Los Angeles, where it hasn't snowed for so many years? I wondered about it, too. I wonder if anybody saw any brown and black woolly bear caterpillars in Los Angeles. Larvae of the tiger moth I see, Isabella.
The title of today's Quiet Please story is Northern Lights. It was written and directed by Willis Cooper. The man who spoke to you was Ernest Chappell.
And my laboratory assistant, Norman, was played by Dan Sutter. The voices of Isabella and her friends was that of Cecil Roy. As usual, music for Quiet Please is played by Albert Berman. Now, for a word about next week, our writer-director, my good friend Willis Cooper.
Thank you for listening to Quiet Please. For next week, I have a story for you that comes from the steel mills out South Chicago way. It's called At the Heat, Bogdan.
And so, until next week at this same time, I am quietly yours, Ernest Chappell.
And now, a listening reminder. How are your predictions of things to come? What's your batting average? Compare your average with the man who has made predicting his business. Listen to Drew Pearson tonight on ABC. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
Quiet, please. Quiet, please.
The American Broadcasting Company presents Quiet Please, which is written and directed by Willis Cooper, and which features Ernest Chappell. Quiet Please for today is called Other Side of the Stars.
I remember Mount Wilson and the 100-inch telescope. And I remember the astronomer Van Dyke and the little house of galvanized iron on the very edge of the summit. That was the house that had nothing inside it. The absence of everything. No, I have no explanation of it. I think perhaps Van Dyke knew something about it. Up there where you used to be able to look down at night on the lights of 6 dozen cities and towns. You could look up, too, at the stars and the planets that seemed so tantalizingly close above you. If you wondered about them, well, maybe Van Dyke might tell you about them. Maybe. Remember that flying saucer craze about a year ago? Well, Van Dyke could probably tell you something about that, too. If he wanted to. I don't know why I'm laughing. I've got plenty of reason not to laugh. Oh, don't you grin at me. You and I are both in the same boat. You and I and everybody else. Up that old creek without oars, friend. No, I'm not a refugee from Stupefying Stories magazine. My name isn't Glob Glodge XB314, and Tars Tarkus Jeddick of the Tharks is still Edgar Rice Burroughs' personal property as far as I'm concerned. I'm not even the eagle-eyed, needle-nosed mad scientist with the 2 heads. I'll take that back. Maybe I have got 2 heads. But I know something you don't know. Yet. I know what's out there on the other side of the stars. Or shall I say I know what was out there?
Oh, excuse me.
What do you want, young man?
Excuse me.
Oh, come barging in here. Isn't that on the air sign turned on out there? Huh? Well, can't people see we're busy in here? Can't you do something about keeping them out of here? I've only got a... All right. Where was I? I said I know what was on the other side of the stars. And I know where it is now. Or I think I know. That's what I'm here to tell you about. If people will stop bursting in here while I'm talking, get out of here, you!
I'm sorry.
Well, wait a minute. You might as well come in and hear what I've got to say in here. You'll keep opening and shutting that door. Sit down there. No, there. Sit down and keep quiet.
Yes, sir.
Who are you, anyway?
I'm Dorothy's brother.
What's your name?
I'm her brother, Steve.
She did have a brother named Steve.
Steve, that's me.
Now, what do you want?
I just want to hear this. What you're going to say.
How did you know I was...
I heard about it.
Well, I've known Dorothy for more than 20 years.
Your name is Esau, isn't it?
Yes. Esau.
Excuse me.
I met Dorothy more than 20 years ago. I met her when I was at Peach Springs, Arizona, before I started off up in the Yavapai Indian country looking for the well. Before Steve here was born.
Uh-huh.
Peach Springs, 20 years ago. I don't know what it's like now. I haven't been there since 1928, September. Then it was a stop-off for the transcontinental buses, such as they were. General store on the edge of the Yavapai Reservation. They were so proud of their new frigid air. And right alongside the general store was a corral where the Indian cowboys seemed always tangling with raw-back range cattle. Not very far away from the Grand Canyon. Remember it well.
Dorothy told me about the well.
I was looking for the gold, of course. With the old map that showed where the well was, the old map with the Spanish words and the mark like the planet Saturn, complete with rings. Marked Pozo del Cielo, well of the heavens, well of the sky. And the other words alongside it in the crabbed soldier's handwriting. Lleno de oro y plata. Full of gold and silver. Full of gold and silver. And I was the first man who'd seen that map since, I think it was 1542, maybe 1543. Wasn't anybody in the world who'd seen it for nearly 400 years till I got hold of it. Went looking for it. For the gold and silver.
Was that the well where...
Dorothy got off the bus from Los Angeles when I did there at Peach Springs. I wasn't aboard it when it started off again. And neither was she. And she went with me looking for the well of the skies. Yeah, it was just that simple.
Dorothy was working for some museum.
She was investigating prehistoric Indian dwellings.
Uh-huh.
She was going north, and so was I. Oh, it was all right. We'd been walking about an hour through the mesquite and talking. There was a rattlesnake, big sidewinder. Dorothy produced a gun from somewhere and very casually shot its head off at 15 feet. I stopped talking, I remember, and Dorothy put away the gun. I know how to use a gun, she said very coolly. See what I mean? I saw. Yeah, well, let's get on. That time's a wasting there. There wasn't any gold, and there wasn't any silver in the Well of the Stars.
You found that out right away?
We found that out right away. There wasn't anything except a skeleton and some very well-preserved pieces of 16th century armor, including a beautifully engraved steel cap, Morion, I think they call them.
Morion.
And a sword. Rapier sorted with a basket hilt. You've seen them in pictures.
Why don't you tell it all?
I'm going to.
I think it would be better if you don't mind.
I'll tell it all. I'll tell it all.
About the music.
I've got to tell about the music. Dorothy said when she came up.
There were footholes cut into the sides of the well.
She went down first because she said she wasn't as heavy as I, and I could hold the rope better in case she fell. She went down as far as the rope would reach, about 15 feet from the bottom. She stayed down quite a while. Finally, when she came up, she said she heard music down there.
Didn't you?
I wish you'd stop prompting me.
Excuse me.
That was all. Just music. In a hole in the ground that was at least 400 years old that nobody had seen since 1542 or 3. Nearly 100 feet deep. Music. That's all. Just music. You know how far away the stars are? The stars, not the planets. The planets are close. The planets of our sun, I mean. But the stars, they're farther. They're so far away that astronomers measure the distance to them in what they call light years, just to make it simpler. The light year? Well, light travels 186,000 miles a second. A second. 186,000 miles. There isn't any such distance, not on this Earth anyway. Around 25,000 miles around the Earth at the equator, that's the farthest you can go, if you're a human being. Anyway, try and think of 186,000 miles. Then you multiply that by 60 for the distance light travels in a minute. Then by 60 again, and that's how far it travels in an hour. Just light, see? Then if you can still figure, multiply that by 24. That's the distance light travels in one day. And 365 times that is how far it travels in a year. That's a light year. In round numbers, 5,829,196,000,000 miles. And the nearest star is more than 4 times that far away. Alpha Centauri is its name. You could look at it some night, maybe. And the light, you see, started from there more than 4 years ago. Alpha might be bright purple now, and you wouldn't know it. Not for 4 years. That's what Van Dyke, the astronomer, told me, and Van Dyke, the astronomer, knows just about everything.
The well. You were talking about the well.
What?
And Dorothy.
Well, I have to tell the whole story, don't I?
Pardon me, pardon me.
You just shut up, Dorothy's brother. You just keep still and don't say anything. The hand on that clock just keeps going around. The first thing I know...
I'm sorry.
It was dark night when I finally climbed up out of the well. It was just like Dorothy said it was. The rope was too short to get all the way to the bottom. And when I came up, it was dark. And there wasn't a sound to be heard, except once in a while a coyote howling somewhere way off in the distance.
The music. Tell about the music.
I heard the music, too, while I was down in the well. I didn't say anything for a couple of minutes after I climbed out over the rim. Finally, Dorothy said in the dark, "Did you hear it?" I thought for a minute. I wondered if I had heard it, or... You see, there wasn't a sound up there on the ground, like I said. And I thought for a minute, and finally I said, "Yes." "Yes," I said, "I heard it, too." "I don't hear it now, though," I said. "Listen. Do you?"
No. I don't hear anything.
What do you suppose?
I don't know. I never heard anything like it before.
Echo, maybe?
No, it wasn't an echo. Came from
Where?
up above.
Nothing here to make any music, though. Indians?
Not like that. Esau.
What?
Build a fire.
Yeah, I guess I'd better.
Go ahead.
All right.
Well?
Listen.
What?
Well, listen. Honest, I'm scared. What?
So am I.
You've got that gun.
I'm not sure that gun would be much use.
You think there's something down there?
Do you?
I don't know.
Maybe we ought to go back to Peach Springs.
We may break our necks in the dark. I don't know which way it is either.
Go by the stars.
No.
I'm cold.
Blankets?
You got blankets, too?
Yeah.
Esau.
What?
What do you think it? Oh,
Now what?
look there. At the mouth of the well.
What?
You see a kind of light?
No.
But don't look right at it. Look kind of to one side.
I don't see anything.
Do you hear anything?
Do you? Do you?
Something moving. Listen.
I hear something.
Something in the well.
Nothing down there.
Nothing but that skeleton and the armor.
And when the ice had finally melted away from my heart and I could move at last, I aimed my flashlight toward the well's mouth, and in the bright beam I saw a poor, harmless lizard choking its little life away half a foot from the lip of the well. And Dorothy and I looked at each other in the dark. I guess she laughed first. In a minute, we were both practically in hysterics at the senseless fright that had gripped us a moment before. Finally, Dorothy said, "I'm going to sleep." She pulled her blanket up over her head and leaned back against a rock. After a while, I did too, still chuckling to myself. And just before I drifted off to sleep, I looked up at the stars, and they seemed so horribly close to us. And then I was asleep, and I dreamed of music that came either from them or from the well that yawned there beside us. And when I woke up, I was all alone. There wasn't a sign of anybody as far as I could see. And I've never seen Dorothy from that day to this.
But you talked to her.
What? Yes, I've talked to her. Yes, I've talked to her. That's what I wanted to tell about. Van Dyke, the astronomer, told me a lot of things when I talked to him. Van Dyke knew what that well was. And he knew about the music. He knew where that came from, too. Music. Yeah, I'd better tell you about it. I never heard music quite like it before. I couldn't place it. It sounded something like, well, like somebody talking, only whoever it was used music instead of words. You could almost understand it. After a while, I did understand it.
Tell about trying to find Dorothy.
The first thing I thought about, of course, was she'd fallen. I wasn't very enthusiastic about climbing down in that well, naturally. But there wasn't anything else to do. She wasn't down there. The skeleton was still there on the bottom of the well. When I got to the end of the rope, I jumped on down. There wasn't anything at all except those old bones and the pieces of armor he'd worn when he was alive. And at last, in the light of my flashlight way down there, a hammered silver bracelet. A hammered silver bracelet I'd seen the day before on Dorothy's left wrist.
But there was something else down there.
What? What did you say?
Something else.
How did you know?
was something else. I didn't know it at the time. If I'd known it was there. But I didn't. I didn't know about it till after I'd talked to Van Dyke, and it was too late. I should have known. It all falls into place. Now, the name of the place, Pozo del Cielo, Well of the Skies. The music that came from nowhere.
I know what you mean, but I don't think they do. Excuse me.
We think about this Earth. We think it's the most important place in the solar system. It isn't.
The solar system is not very important either.
Will you keep quiet?
I'm sorry.
No, the solar system isn't very important either. It's only a tiny little bit of the...
Universe?
Not universe, it's plural. We're all part of what we call the Milky Way. Billions and billions of universes. As far as anybody could see with the biggest telescope ever invented, and the people in the other universes are just as ignorant of us as we are of them, just as uninterested.
Except a few of the scientists.
Now, let's not talk like one of those magazines, young man. Steve. The chances of an intelligent being from another universe even seeing this one of ours is pretty remote. What? Certainly there are intelligent beings in the other universes. Don't be so self-important. No, they're not necessarily like us. They aren't like us, as a matter of fact. Why should they be? Who are we? Just leave it like that. There are intelligences other than the so-called human race. Hate us? Don't be silly. Most of them don't know we exist. Afraid of us? It's sillier yet.
The well.
That's right. The well. You don't think the so-called human race dug that well, do you? You don't flatter yourself that that music was produced by human beings, do you? You don't think Dorothy disappeared through any human means, do you? Well, the answer in each case is no. The human race didn't have anything to do with it. Why? The thing told me. The thing at the bottom of the well. The intelligence from the other side of the stars, friend. Van Dyke told me all about it. Van Dyke knows an awful lot. Sometimes I think Van Dyke is...
Not human?
How would any human being figure it all out and be so right? Because he's right, all right.
Tell it.
The well, Van Dyke said, was a kind of telescope. Telescope isn't the right word, but it was the same thing as a telescope, only... You know, astronomers just look at the stars. The silent stars, the stars that never make any sound. You just see them. You don't hear them. What if you had a telescope for sound? Why should the stars be silent? I'll tell you something. They're not. They're just so far away we can't hear them. Yeah, talk all you want about having to have atmosphere and stuff to be able to hear sound. That's human reasoning. And these people, the stars, they know one or two things we don't know.
Stars? People?
Certainly the stars are alive. Certainly what's on the other side of them is alive. Well, go right ahead and laugh. I don't care what you think. You'll find out different. Only it'll be too late, see?
You... about Dorothy?
I have a couple of other things to say first, Steve. Then Dorothy. It was 20 years ago that I first saw the Well of the Skies and heard the music. It took me 16 years nearly to get the story all wrapped up. From Van Dyke and from my own researches. I even took Van Dyke to see the well. He listened to the music, and he laughed. You don't know Van Dyke. You never heard him laugh. Gives me the creeps. A little more than 6 years ago, he gave me the machine. You've heard of the electrocelograph. Machine that does something about recording thought waves, brain waves, works, purely scientific, hard facts, all that. This thing is something like an electrocelograph, Van Dyke said. Put on these earphones, turn it on, watch the dials. That's all.
Understand the music?
That's right. Understand the music. Translates it into thoughts. Translates it so you can understand it. the music, the conversation that comes from the stars and the other side of the stars. And from the thing in the well. The thing in the well. And Mike told me what to look for. Too bad this isn't television. You could see it. It goes with me everywhere I go. Well, you can hear it anyway. That's it. That's the first intelligent thing from the stars, the other side of the stars, that anybody on this earth has ever encountered. Just a little sphere, just like a ball. Feels like an egg, kind of, except it's not hard and brittle like an egg. Warm to the touch, moves, thinks, does whatever it wants to, talks by music. No, I don't know much more about it, except it's alive, very highly alive. Tells me it's closer to plant life than to our kind of life. Color? It's kind of grayish-green, very undistinguished to look at. Blue? Well, it came from the star Alpha Centauri. I told you Alpha Centauri is 4 light years away. It took 4 years for this thing to get here at the speed of light, 186,000 miles a second. And
Here to stay.
that's right. Here to stay. Found this Earth by sheer accident. Curious about us.
Do anything it wants to.
It can do anything it wants to. Yes. Maybe you'd like to hear it. Hold the microphone over here close, Steve. Here, closer. Yeah, that's it. Wait. Yes. Yes, of course. Over here for a cigar. Thank you. We'll let you hear it through the machine now, so you can hear. So you can understand what it's saying. Just a second, I'll turn on the machine. Steve, move the microphone over here closer to the earphones. So. Now. Just a second for the tubes to warm up. Now we adjust this dial. This one. Listen.
Lisa, I always told you almost enough, but there is still more to be
Dorothy's
told.
voice.
I found it very useful to absorb Dorothy. It is very difficult for me to form impressions of you human beings without much closer contact, without making your physical being a part of my own. There was only one other in all the time since I came to this universe, a Spanish
The skeleton in
soldier.
the armor.
And then when you and Dorothy came, it was necessary to know more about current conditions. All I knew about human beings was what I found in the mind of the Spanish soldier. You have made a few steps forward since his time. The rest of us will be interested.
Move the microphone, Steve. You see? That's what became of Dorothy, Steve.
Dead.
No. No, Steve, Dorothy isn't dead. Dorothy's a part of that. Just like we're all going to be a part of the others.
Excuse me. I mean...
I was out in California 2 weeks ago. Van Dyke, he's still at Mount Wilson. He wouldn't go to Palomar. There's something about Mount Wilson and the 100-inch telescope and the little house on the mountaintop that's got nothing in it. I told you about that. And Van Dyke doesn't want to leave. Van Dyke showed me a photograph made through the 100-inch on the 3rd of March. Yeah, let me show it to you, Steve.
Stars.
You describe it, Steve. This picture was made toward Alpha Centauri. Yeah, that's Alpha Centauri there. Now, there. You describe what you see, Steve.
Oh, no.
Go on.
Stars. Millions of stars.
And this?
Cloud.
A cloud, blotting out the stars from a sixth of a light year away. 2 months ago, sixth of a light year. Now, this photograph, made April 7th, Steve. Steve.
The cloud. It's bigger.
A 1/12 of a light year closer to the Earth, Steve. They're coming.
I don't know.
Put the microphone over here closer. Yeah, by the machine. Here, listen now. Here is the word from the other side of the stars. Here is the word from the beings, the intelligences, the things from Alpha Centauri. Listen.
Welcome. Welcome to this place. Welcome to all of you. This place they call the Earth. It is not bad. It is an interesting place. I am glad you have come after all this time. The inhabitants will give us no trouble whatever. They are very inferior grade of intelligence.
Is that... What can we do? I mean...
It's too late now, Steve. Much too late. At the speed of light, they're less than a day away.
But they... From the other side of the stars?
That's right, Steve. They've come to take over the Earth.
The title of today's Quiet Please story was The Other Side of the Stars. It was written and directed by Willis Cooper, and the man who spoke to you was Ernest Chappell.
And Jane White played Dorothy. The young man was Mark Forbes. As usual, music for Quiet Please is by Albert Berman. Now for a word about next week, our writer-director Willis Cooper.
Thank you for listening to Quiet, Please. Next week I have a love story for you for a change. It's called The Little Mornings.
And so until next week at the same time, I am quietly yours, Ernest Chappell.
Don't take any chances with your family's health. Each year, be certain that you and the others in your family have a chest X-ray to determine whether or not you have TB. Chest X-rays are available at your local tuberculosis clinic. Please take no chances. Have a chest X-ray. Help wipe out tuberculosis. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
This is WJZ, New York's first station, and WJZ-FM. For the inside version of the news, the factual highlights that lie behind the headlines, listen for Drew Pearson coming up next. Stronger, shock-resisting.